The sound of the slap was so loud it made everyone stop. The music stopped. People stopped eating. Everyone froze. In the middle of the Sapphire Room restaurant, a waitress named Bella stood very still. Her cheek was red and stinging. A rich woman in a bright yellow dress named Celeste had just hit her. Celeste's hand was still in the air. But nobody was looking at Celeste anymore. Everyone was looking at the man sitting next to her. His name was Nino Ramirez. He was the most dangerous man in the city. People said he was like a king of the bad guys. They said if you made him angry, you would disappear forever. Everyone thought the waitress was in big trouble. Everyone thought she would be gone by morning. But when Nino stood up, he didn't pull out a gun. He didn't call his bodyguards. He did something nobody expected, something that would change everything. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we see what happens next, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? If you want to see what this scary mob boss does, click the subscribe button right now. Let's go back a little bit to see how this all started. Bella Cruz fixed her black work apron for the third time. She did this when she was nervous. The apron was old and had a small rip in the pocket. She had been working all day and her feet really hurt. Cruz, you're serving table 4 tonight. The important people. Don't mess this up. That was her boss, Gerald. He was the kind of man who always looked worried and sweaty. Table 4, Bella asked quietly. Yes, Nino Ramirez is sitting there. Gerald looked at her seriously. Do you know who that is? Bella knew. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if they didn't talk about it. Nino Ramirez was scary. He was rich. He was powerful. People said he controlled half the city. Nobody wanted to make him mad. I understand, Gerald. I promise I'll be careful. Bella's feet hurt in her cheap shoes. I really need the tip money tonight. My little brother Mateo needs medicine, and it costs more now. I don't need to hear your problems, Cruz. I just need you not to spill expensive wine on a man who could buy this whole restaurant. Gerald gave her a wine list. Table 4, go now. Bella pushed her hair behind her ear. A piece had fallen out of her ponytail. Her old shoes made squeaky sounds as she walked across the shiny floor toward the scary man's table. She had no idea her whole life was about to change. Bella's hands trembled slightly as she approached table 4, the heavy wine bottle cradled in both palms like something precious that might explode. The table sat in the corner of the restaurant, in the spot where all the most important people sat. There were candles flickering on the white tablecloth and fancy glasses that probably cost more than Bella made in a month. The woman in the yellow dress saw her first, Celeste Vanderwall. Even her name sounded rich and mean. Her blonde hair was perfect. Her jewelry sparkled under the lights. Her dress was so bright it almost hurt to look at, like staring at the sun. Finally, Celeste said, her voice sharp and cold. We've been waiting forever. Do you people even know how to do your jobs? I'm so sorry for the wait, ma'am, Bella said, keeping her voice soft and polite the way Gerald had taught her. May I pour your wine? Next to Celeste sat the man everyone was afraid of, Nino Ramirez. He wore a black shirt that wasn't buttoned all the way up. Bella could see dark tattoos on his chest, like pictures drawn on his skin. His dark hair was slicked back. His eyes were dark too, and they didn't blink much. He looked at Bella the way a cat looks at a mouse, not mean exactly, but like he was studying her, learning about her. Bella tried not to look at him. She focused on pouring the wine into Celeste's glass, making sure not to spill a single drop. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them steady. She needed this job. She needed the money. Mateo needed his medicine. Celeste picked up the glass and took a tiny sip. Then her face twisted up like she had tasted something disgusting. This wine is bad, she announced loudly. It's corked. It tastes like wet cardboard. Bella's heart sank. She knew the wine wasn't bad. She had opened the bottle herself just 2 minutes ago. The seal was perfect. The smell was right. But rich people like Celeste sometimes said wine was bad just because they could, just to feel powerful, just to watch people scramble. Ma'am, I opened this bottle fresh, Bella said carefully, trying to sound respectful but also truthful. I smelled it myself. I don't think it's corked. Perhaps a different wine would. The slap came so fast Bella didn't even see it coming. Crack. The sound echoed through the whole restaurant like a firecracker going off. Bella's head snapped to the side. Her cheek exploded with hot, stinging pain. For a second, she couldn't see anything. Her eyes filled with water. Her ears rang. "How dare you contradict me?" Celeste shrieked, her pretty face twisted with ugly anger. "You're just a stupid waitress. I said the wine is bad, so the wine is bad." The entire restaurant went silent. The music stopped. The talking stopped. Even the kitchen sounds stopped. Everyone stared. Bella stood there, frozen. One hand slowly rose to touch her burning cheek. She could feel it swelling already, getting hot under her fingertips. She wanted to cry, but she couldn't, not here, not in front of everyone. She needed this job. If she cried or fought back, Gerald would fire her. Then who would pay for Mateo's medicine? Who would pay the rent? So she just stood there, taking it, like she always had to take everything. That's when Nino moved. He didn't jump up. He didn't slam his fist on the table. He just stood up slowly, smoothly, like a shadow rising. The chair didn't even make a sound. He stood there for a moment, looking down at Celeste with an expression Bella couldn't read. His face was calm, but something dangerous flickered in his dark eyes. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet that Bella had to strain to hear it. But somehow, that quiet voice was scarier than any yelling could ever be. "Celeste," just her name, one word, but the way he said it made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Celeste's angry face changed. Her eyes got wide. "Nino, baby, this girl was being disrespectful and—" "You slapped her." His voice was still quiet, still calm, but there was something underneath it, something hard and cold like steel. "In my presence, at my table, you raised your hand to someone who cannot fight back." "She's just a waitress," Celeste protested, her voice getting higher and shakier. Nino took one step closer to Bella. He was tall, much taller than she'd realized. He looked down at her face, at the red mark spreading across her cheek in the exact shape of Celeste's hand. His jaw tightened. A muscle twitched near his eye. Then he turned back to Celeste. "That just a waitress is doing her job. She opened a fresh bottle. She told you the truth. And you hit her because you didn't like hearing the truth." He paused. "I don't tolerate lack of control, not from my enemies, and certainly not from the woman wearing my ring. If you despise people like Celeste who treat service workers like trash, hit that subscribe button right now. Comment, respect is free, if you stand against bullies." Nino didn't raise his voice. He didn't even turn his head. He simply lifted 2 fingers, barely a movement at all, like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. Immediately, 2 huge men in dark suits appeared from nowhere. They must have been standing against the walls the whole time, but Bella hadn't noticed them. They moved fast and silent, like sharks gliding through water. Celeste's face went white. "Nino, wait, baby, please, I didn't mean." "Marco, Vincent," Nino's quiet voice cut through her begging like a knife through butter. "Escort Miss Vanderwaal out. She's no longer welcome at this table, or in my life." "What?" Celeste's voice came out as a squeak. Her hands grabbed at the edge of the table. "You can't be serious. Nino, we're engaged. We're getting married in 3 months, my father." "Your father will understand that I don't accept disrespect." Nino still wasn't yelling. That was somehow more terrifying than if he had been screaming. "The engagement is over. The ring you're wearing belongs to me. You'll return it to Marco by tomorrow morning." One of the big men, Marco, stepped forward. He didn't grab Celeste roughly, but he didn't have to. His huge hand just hovered near her arm, and she flinched away from it like it was on fire. "This is ridiculous," Celeste shrieked, but her voice was shaking now, scared. "You're breaking up with me over some nobody, some poor little waitress. Are you insane?" Nino finally looked at her again. His eyes were flat and empty, like looking into a dark room with no lights on. "I'm breaking up with you because you lack control, because you're cruel when you think no one will stop you, because you hit someone weaker than you to feel powerful." He paused. "That kind of weakness disgusts me." Celeste opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Tears started running down her face, making her makeup smear in black streaks. But they weren't sad tears. They were angry, embarrassed tears. The kind you cry when you're used to getting everything you want and suddenly someone says no. "Get her out," Nino said, waving his hand like he was brushing away a fly. Marco and Vincent moved in. This time they did take Celeste's arms, one on each side. She tried to pull away, but they were too strong. They lifted her right out of her chair. Her high heels scraped against the marble floor as they walked her toward the door. "You'll regret this," Celeste screamed over her shoulder, her perfect hair falling in her face now. "My family knows people. You can't just throw me away like garbage. I'll make you sorry, I'll." The door closed behind her and the screaming stopped. Just like that, she was gone. The entire restaurant was still silent. Everyone had watched the whole thing. Bella could feel dozens of eyes on her, but she couldn't move. Her cheek still burned. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. What just happened? Did the most dangerous man in the city just break up with his rich, beautiful fiancée because she slapped a waitress? Nino turned back to the table. He looked down at the spilled wine, the dark red puddles spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. Without a word, he picked up his napkin, the fancy cloth one that had been folded into a swan shape, and dropped it over the spill. It soaked up the wine immediately, the white fabric turning crimson. Then he looked at Bella, really looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "My fiancé lacks discipline," he said, his voice still that same quiet, dangerous calm. "She couldn't control her temper, couldn't control her hands." He gestured at the wine bottle, still clutched in Bella's trembling grip. "You, however, took the hit without spilling the rest of the bottle." Bella looked down. He was right. Even though Celeste had slapped her hard enough to make her head snap sideways, even though her whole face was on fire with pain, she hadn't dropped the bottle. She hadn't spilled another drop. Her hands had just tightened around the glass, holding on, keeping it safe. Years of waitressing had taught her body to protect the customer's order no matter what. Bella didn't know what to say. What do you say to a mob boss who just dumped his fiancée for you? "Thank you" seemed wrong. "I'm sorry" seemed worse. Nino reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. It was thick, made of black leather that looked soft and expensive. He took out several bills and placed them on the table. Bella couldn't see how much it was, but the bills were all hundreds. There had to be at least 10 of them. "For your trouble," he said, "and for your honesty about the wine, you were right, it wasn't corked." He buttoned his jacket, preparing to leave. But before he turned away, he looked at Bella one more time. This time his eyes weren't empty. There was something else there now. Curiosity, maybe, or interest, like he had just discovered something valuable that he hadn't expected to find. "What's your name?" he asked. "Bella," she whispered. "Bella Cruz." "Bella Cruz." He repeated it slowly, like he was memorizing it, storing it away in his mind. "I'll remember that." Then he walked toward the door, his footsteps silent on the marble floor. The remaining bodyguards followed him like shadows, and just like that, he was gone too. Bella stood there, alone in the middle of the restaurant, her cheek throbbing, her hands shaking, and $1,000 sitting on the table in front of her. Nino sat in the back of his black SUV, the kind with windows so dark you couldn't see inside even if you pressed your face against the glass. The leather seats were soft and cool. The engine purred quietly, like a sleeping tiger. Marco drove while Vincent sat in the passenger seat, both men silent, waiting. Nino wasn't going home yet. He was waiting for something, or rather someone. A knock on the window made Marco press a button. The door opened, and another man slid into the seat next to Nino. This man was different from the muscle-bound bodyguards. He was thinner, wore glasses, and carried a manila folder tucked under his arm like it was made of gold. "Rocco," Nino said, not even looking up from his phone. "You're faster than usual." "You gave me an easy one, boss." Rocco adjusted his glasses and opened the folder. Papers rustled in the quiet car. "Bella Maria Cruz, age 24, born in the city, never left. Parents died in a car accident when she was 19. She's been raising her younger brother ever since." Nino finally looked up from his phone. "Go on." "She works 2 jobs, Waitress at the Sapphire Room 4 nights a week, and she cleans offices downtown on her days off. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. She's clean, boss, almost too clean. Rocco flipped a page. But here's where it gets interesting. Nino raised one eyebrow, waiting. Her brother, Mateo Cruz, age 16. He has a bad heart, born with it. The doctors say he needs a transplant or he won't make it to 18. Rocco pulled out a stack of papers with hospital logos at the top. These are rejection letters from the transplant list, 6 of them. Why rejected? Nino asked, leaning forward slightly. Money, Rocco said the word like it tasted bitter. The kid needs almost $500,000 for the surgery, the anti-rejection drugs, the recovery care, everything. The family has no insurance that covers it. Bella's been trying to get him on the transplant list for 2 years, but they keep saying no because she can't prove she can pay for the aftercare. Nino took the papers from Rocco's hands. His dark eyes scanned the letters quickly, taking in the cold, official language. Insufficient financial resources. Unable to guarantee post-operative care. Application denied pending proof of payment capability. The same words over and over, just rearranged differently each time. All of them meant the same thing. Your brother can die because you're poor. How much does she make? Nino asked. Rocco checked his notes. About $30,000 a year, maybe 35 with tips. She lives in a tiny apartment in the bad part of town. Rent is cheap, but the building has rats. She's behind on her electric bill. Her brother's medication costs eat up most of her paycheck. He paused. She's drowning, boss. Working herself to death trying to save him, but the math just doesn't work. Nino stared at the rejection letters for a long moment. Outside the SUV, he could see the Sapphire Room's back door. In a few hours, Bella would walk out of that door, exhausted, her feet hurting, her face probably still red from Celeste's slap. She would take the bus home because she couldn't afford a car. She would check on her brother, make sure he took his pills, then collapse into bed for a few hours before waking up to do it all over again. And all of it, every single struggle, every sleepless night, every missed meal, was because she didn't have money. Money that Nino had so much of, he didn't even count it anymore. What else? Nino asked. The brother's a good kid. Straight A's in school despite being sick all the time, wants to be a teacher. Bella basically gave up her own life to raise him. She had a scholarship to college, did you know that? Full ride. But she dropped out when their parents died because someone had to work. Rocco closed the folder. She chose him over her own future. Nino's jaw tightened. He understood sacrifice. In his world, you sacrificed enemies, betrayers, anyone who got in your way. But sacrificing yourself for someone else, that was different. That was the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy, couldn't force, couldn't fake. That was rare. She's at the end of her rope, boss, Rocco continued. The doctors gave the kid maybe 6 months, 8 if he's lucky. After that, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Nino handed the folder back to Rocco, but kept the rejection letters. He folded them carefully and slipped them into his inside jacket pocket, right over his heart. She has something I need, Nino said quietly, more to himself than to Rocco. What's that, boss? A clean face, an innocent story. Nino looked out the window at the restaurant's glowing sign. After what happened tonight, every society columnist in the city will be writing about how I dumped Celeste Vanderwall in public. They'll call me cruel, ruthless, heartless. My business partners, the legitimate ones, they're already nervous about working with me. This won't help. Rocco nodded slowly, beginning to understand. But if I'm seen with someone like Bella Cruz, Nino continued, a hard-working waitress, supporting her sick brother, putting herself through hell to save him, suddenly I'm not the monster who threw away his fiancée. I'm the man who saw something real and chose it over fake society trash. You want to use her, Rocco said. It wasn't a question. I want to help her, Nino corrected, but his smile was cold. And in return, she'll help me. Her brother gets his transplant. She gets to save his life. And I get a year of good publicity that makes me look human. He tapped his fingers on his knee, thinking, everyone wins. And if she says no? Nino's smile widened, showing teeth. She won't. She can't. She's desperate, and desperate people don't refuse miracles. He looked at Rocco. Find out where she lives. I'll pay her a visit tomorrow. The shift finally ended at midnight. Bella's feet felt like they were on fire. Every step sent sharp pain shooting up her legs. She had counted her tips 3 times in the back room, hardly believing the number. With Nino's $1,000 plus the regular tips from other tables, she had made more money tonight than she usually made in a month. But her cheek still hurt. Every time she touched it, she winced. It was swollen and hot, probably bruised purple by now. She had avoided looking in the mirror. Gerald had been weird with her all night after the incident. Not mean, but nervous, like she was suddenly made of glass and might shatter. He kept asking if she was okay, if she needed to go home early, if she wanted to press charges. Bella had said no to everything. She just wanted to forget it happened. She wanted to go home, check on Mateo, and sleep. She pushed open the back door of the restaurant, the one that led to the alley where the dumpsters were kept. The night air was cool and smelled like garbage and city rain. The alley was dark except for one flickering streetlight at the far end. And a black SUV parked right in the middle, blocking her path. Bella froze. Her heart started hammering in her chest. The SUV's windows were so dark she couldn't see inside. The engine was running, purring softly like a dangerous animal waiting to pounce. She thought about turning around, going back inside, asking Gerald to walk her to the bus stop. But before she could move, the back door of the SUV opened. Nino Ramirez stepped out. He looked different in the alley's shadows, bigger somehow, more dangerous. His black shirt seemed to absorb the darkness around him. His eyes caught the streetlight and reflected it back like a cat's eyes in the dark. "Bella Cruz," he said, his voice calm and quiet, the same voice he'd used when he destroyed Celeste's entire life with just a few words. "We need to talk." I have to get home," Bella stammered, taking a step backward. "My brother is waiting for me." Mateo, 16 years old, dilated cardiomyopathy, 6 months to live without a transplant. Nino said the words like he was reading from a menu. "You've applied to 6 different transplant programs. All 6 rejected you because you can't pay." Bella's blood turned to ice. How did he know that? How did he know Mateo's name, his condition, the rejection letters she kept hidden in a drawer at home because seeing them hurt too much? "How do you?" she whispered. Nino reached into the SUV and pulled out a folder. He opened it and took out photographs. Real photographs, printed on shiny paper. He held them up so Bella could see them in the streetlight. The first photo was of Mateo sitting on their couch, his thin frame wrapped in a blanket, doing homework. Someone had taken this picture through their apartment window. The second photo was of Bella cleaning an office building, her back bent, scrubbing a floor at 2 in the morning. The third photo was a hospital bill with red, past due, stamps all over it. Bella felt sick. "You've been spying on me, on my brother." "I've been learning about you," Nino corrected, like there was a difference. "I know everything, Bella. I know you dropped out of college to take care of him. I know you work 2 jobs and still can't make enough. I know the hospital sends you bills you can't pay. I know you cry in the bathroom at work when you think no one is listening." He stepped closer. "I know you're drowning." Tears burned in Bella's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "What do you want from me?" Nino smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a shark that had found something interesting in the water. "I don't offer charity, Bella. I offer trades, exchanges, deals where everyone gets something they need." "I don't have anything you could possibly want," Bella said, her voice shaking. "You have something very valuable." Nino put the photos back in the folder. "You have a clean reputation, an innocent face, a sad story that makes people's hearts break." He paused. "After tonight, I need to fix my image. The people I do business with, the legitimate ones, they're nervous about working with someone who looks like a monster. But if that monster is seen with someone like you, suddenly he looks human." Bella's stomach twisted. She understood now. "You want to use me?" "I want to save your brother's life," Nino said simply, "in exchange for 1 year of your time." "What does that mean?" Bella whispered. Nino held up one finger. "1 year, you wear my ring. You appear at my side at public events. You smile for photographs. You play the role of my fiancée, the good girl who saw something worth saving in the bad man. He held up a second finger. In return, I pay for Mateo's transplant. Immediately. The full amount. Surgery, recovery, medication, everything. The best doctors, the best hospital, the best care money can buy. Bella couldn't breathe. $500,000. Everything she'd been killing herself for, working herself to death for, crying herself to sleep over. He was offering it like it was nothing, like it was pocket change. And after the year, she asked, "You're free to go. The money is yours to keep. Mateo is healthy. You can go back to your life, go back to school, do whatever you want." Nino's dark eyes bore into hers. "All it costs is 1 year of pretending to love me." Bella's mind raced. 1 year, 12 months, 52 weeks. It wasn't forever. It wasn't even that long. And at the end, Mateo would be alive. He would have a future. He could become the teacher he dreamed of being. He could grow up, fall in love, have a life. But what would it cost her? What would it mean to belong to someone like Nino Ramirez, even pretend to belong to him? He was dangerous. He was a criminal. People disappeared around him. "I need to think about it," Bella said. "No," Nino's voice was firm. "You need to decide now. Tonight. Mateo has 6 months, Bella, maybe less. Every day you wait is a day he gets weaker. Every day you waste working 2 jobs for pennies is a day closer to losing him forever." He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. "I have the hospital on speed dial. I can have him admitted to the transplant wing by morning. By tomorrow afternoon, they'll be running tests. Within a week, they'll be searching for a donor. Within a month, he could have a new heart." Bella looked at the phone, then at the photos of her brother, so thin and pale in that picture, then at Nino's face, hard and cold and offering her a miracle wrapped in chains. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why not just find some other girl?" "Because you took a slap and didn't spill the wine," Nino said softly. "Because you're loyal, because you're real, and because desperate people keep their promises." He held out his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Bella looked at his hand, extended in the darkness like a lifeline, or a noose. She thought of Mateo, coughing in his sleep, too weak to walk to school some days, getting thinner and paler every week. She thought of the rejection letters. She thought of the bills she couldn't pay. She thought of how tired she was, how hopeless, how close she was to giving up. And she put her hand in his. It's heartbreaking that Bella has to choose between her freedom and her brother's life. If you hate a system that forces people into debt to survive, comment, "Healthcare is a human right" below. Bella barely slept that night. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling with its water stains that looked like clouds, listening to Mateo's raspy breathing from the other room. Every few minutes she looked at her phone, at the text message Nino had sent her with an address and a time. 9:00 a.m. "A car will pick you up. Bring nothing. Everything will be provided." At 8:45, she kissed Mateo's forehead while he slept. He felt warm, too warm, his skin pale against the pillow. She had left him a note on the kitchen table that said she had a meeting about a new job, that she'd be back soon, that he should take his medicine and rest. She didn't tell him the truth. How could she? How do you tell your baby brother that you just sold yourself to a mob boss to save his life? At exactly 9:00, a black car pulled up outside her building. Not the SUV from last night, but a sleek sedan that looked like it cost more than her entire apartment building. A man in a suit opened the back door for her. He didn't smile or speak. He just waited. Bella climbed in, her hands shaking. The drive took 20 minutes, leaving behind her neighborhood of broken streetlights and graffiti-covered walls. The buildings got taller, cleaner, shinier. They pulled up to a glass tower that seemed to touch the sky, the kind of building Bella had only ever seen in magazines. The suited man led her through a lobby with marble floors, so shiny she could see her reflection. They rode an elevator that moved so smoothly she couldn't even feel it going up. The numbers climbed higher and higher until they reached the very top, penthouse. The doors opened directly into Nino's home. Bella stepped out and her breath caught in her throat. The entire apartment was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the whole city spread out below like a toy model. The furniture was all black leather and dark wood. Everything looked expensive and cold, like a photograph in a design magazine, not like a place where real people lived. Nino stood by the windows, his back to her, hands in his pockets. He wore dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Even from behind, he looked powerful, like he owned not just this apartment but the entire city below it. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Bella heard the elevator doors whisper shut behind her. They were alone. Nino finally turned to face her. His dark eyes scanned her quickly, taking in her worn jeans, her old sneakers, her cheap jacket. She felt small and shabby in this gleaming space, like a smudge on a clean window. "By tomorrow, the entire city will know about you," Nino said, walking toward her slowly. "The newspapers will want photos. Social media will explode. Everyone will ask who you are, where you came from, why I chose you over Celeste Vanderwall." "What do I tell them?" Bella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You tell them we met at the restaurant. You tell them it was love at first sight. You tell them I saw something real in you, something Celeste never had." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and dark. "You tell them whatever they want to hear, as long as you're smiling when you say it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black velvet box. Bella's heart started pounding. She knew what was in that box. She had known since last night, but seeing him hold it, made it real in a way that terrified her. Nino opened the box. The ring inside was enormous. A huge diamond, square-cut and clear as ice, surrounded by smaller diamonds that sparkled like stars. It sat on black velvet, catching the morning light and throwing rainbows across the walls. Bella had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying in her life. This wasn't jewelry. This was a statement. This was a claim. "Give me your left hand," Nino commanded softly. Bella's hand trembled as she raised it. In the bright morning light, she could see the bruise on her ring finger, the purple and yellow mark where Celeste's slap had landed so hard the force had traveled down to her hand. Nino noticed it too. His jaw tightened slightly, the only sign of emotion on his otherwise calm face. He took her hand gently, his fingers warm against her cold skin. With his other hand, he lifted the ring from its box. "This ring means you belong to me," he said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. "For 1 year, you are mine. You go where I go. You smile when I tell you to smile. You stand at my side and make me look like something other than what I am." He slid the ring onto her finger slowly, the metal cool and heavy. "Do you understand?" The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did. He had probably known her exact size before she even agreed to this deal. The huge diamond covered the bruise completely, hiding the purple and yellow under cold, brilliant white. "I understand," Bella whispered. Nino didn't let go of her hand. He held it up, tilting it so the diamond caught the light, sending sparkles dancing across the ceiling. "This ring cost more than most people make in 5 years. People will see it and know you're under my protection. They'll know touching you means answering to me." "It's beautiful," Bella said, because she didn't know what else to say. "It's a cage," Nino corrected, finally releasing her hand. "A very expensive, very beautiful cage, but don't forget what it really is." Bella looked down at her hand, at the massive ring that weighed her finger down, at how it completely covered the mark of violence with something that looked like love but felt like chains. "My brother," she said, her voice stronger now. "You promised." "Already done." Nino pulled out his phone and showed her a series of text messages and emails. "Mateo was admitted to St. Catherine's Hospital 1 hour ago. The transplant team is evaluating him now. I've paid the full amount in advance. He's getting the best care in the country." Tears filled Bella's eyes, real ones this time, hot and overwhelming. "Thank you," she choked out. "Don't thank me." Nino's voice was cold. "You're paying for it. With your time, your freedom, your face, your name. This isn't a gift, Bella, it's a transaction." He stepped back, putting distance between them again. "You've sold yourself to the devil. The only question now is whether you can survive the year without burning." Bella looked down at the ring again, at how it sparkled and gleamed like captured fire. She thought about Mateo in a hospital bed right now, finally getting the help he needed, finally having a chance to live. And she knew, no matter what happened, no matter how heavy this ring felt, no matter what price she had to pay, it was worth it. This ring isn't a gift, it's a shackle. If you would never sell your soul for money, unless it was for family, hit subscribe and join our family. 3 days later, Bella sat in the most expensive clothing store she had ever seen. It wasn't even really a store. It was a private boutique that didn't have prices on anything because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The walls were white and gold. The carpet was so thick her feet sank into it. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. A woman named Claudia, who wore all black and had perfect silver hair, kept bringing out dresses. Each one was more beautiful and more expensive-looking than the last. Silk that felt like water. Lace so delicate it looked like spider webs. Colors Bella didn't even have names for. "This one," Claudia said, holding up a deep red gown that shimmered when it moved. "For the charity gala tomorrow night, Mr. Ramirez specifically requested red." Bella stood on a small platform in front of 3 huge mirrors, while Claudia and 2 assistants fussed over her, pinning the dress, adjusting the straps, discussing hem lengths in words Bella didn't understand. She caught her own reflection and barely recognized herself. With her hair styled and makeup professionally done, wearing a dress that cost more than a year of rent, she looked like someone else entirely. Nino sat across the room in a white leather chair, his phone in one hand, barely looking up. He had been there the whole time, silent, watching but not commenting. 2 of his bodyguards stood by the door. Marco and Vincent, always close, always watching. "Turn," Claudia instructed, and Bella turned slowly on the platform. That's when she saw it through the boutique's large front windows. A black van, moving too fast down the quiet street. Something about it felt wrong. The windows were too dark. It was slowing down instead of passing by. "Nino," Bella said, her voice uncertain. He looked up from his phone, his eyes following her gaze to the street. His entire body went rigid. In one smooth motion, he was on his feet, phone forgotten, falling to the floor. "Get down," he roared. The world exploded. The boutique's huge windows shattered into a million pieces as bullets tore through them. The sound was deafening, like the sky was being ripped apart. Glass flew everywhere, glittering in the air like deadly snow. The mirrors behind Bella cracked and splintered. Mannequins fell. Racks of dresses collapsed. Bella screamed, but couldn't hear her own voice over the gunfire. Suddenly Nino was there, moving faster than she thought possible. His body slammed into hers, tackling her off the platform. They hit the ground hard, Nino's weight crushing her into the thick carpet, his arms wrapped around her head, protecting her. The bullets kept coming, ripping through the boutique, destroying everything. Bella could hear Claudia screaming somewhere, could hear Marco and Vincent returning fire, their guns adding to the chaos. Could hear the tinkle of glass still falling, the thud of bullets hitting walls, the squeal of tires outside. And through it all, Nino's body covered hers completely, a human shield between her and death. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The van's engine roared, tires screeched, the gunfire faded into the distance. Silence fell, heavy and shocking. Nino didn't move immediately. He stayed on top of Bella, his breath hot against her ear, his heart pounding so hard she could feel it against her back. Finally, slowly, he lifted his head. "Are you hit?" His voice was rough, urgent. His hands ran over her arms, her shoulders, checking for blood. I don't think so," Bella gasped. She couldn't catch her breath. Her ears were ringing. Everything felt unreal, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Nino pulled back and looked at her, his dark eyes scanning every inch of her face. There was something in his expression she'd never seen before. Not anger. Fear. Real, raw fear. "Boss," Marco appeared, his gun still drawn, his face grim. "They're gone. It was the Cortez cartel. I got a partial plate." Nino stood up, pulling Bella with him. Glass crunched under their feet. The beautiful boutique looked like a war zone. Dresses were shredded. Mirrors were destroyed. Claudia huddled behind a counter, crying, her perfect silver hair now covered in dust and glass. "How did they know?" Nino's voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that came before an explosion. How did they know she would be here, today, now? I don't know, boss, Vincent said, appearing from the other side of the room. He had a cut on his cheek, blood running down to his jaw. We swept for tracking devices, changed the appointment time twice, used 3 different routes to get here. Nino's jaw clenched so tight Bella could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. He looked down at her, at the red dress she still wore, now dusted with glass and plaster. His hand came up and gently brushed a piece of glass from her hair. They know about you, he said softly, and there was something in his voice that made Bella's blood run cold. The Cortez cartel knows I have someone I care about, someone they can use to hurt me. But you don't care about me, Bella whispered. This is just business, you said so yourself. Nino's eyes met hers, and for a moment she saw something crack in his careful, controlled expression. It doesn't matter what I feel, he said. It matters what they think, and they think you're important to me. His hand moved from her hair to her cheek, his thumb brushing over her skin. Which means you're dead the moment they get another chance. The reality of it hit Bella like a physical blow. This wasn't just pretend anymore. This wasn't just wearing a ring and smiling for cameras. People with guns had just tried to kill her. Real bullets, real death. They would try again. What do we do? She asked, adding how small her voice sounded. Nino's expression hardened, his face becoming a mask of cold determination. We disappear. Tonight. There's a place they can't find, can't touch, can't reach. He looked at Marco. Call ahead to the mountain house. Full security protocol. No one in or out without my direct authorization. Boss, if there's a leak in the organization, Vincent started. Then we trust no one, Nino cut him off. The only people who go to the safe house are the 3 of us and her. He looked back at Bella, and she saw the grim promise in his eyes. I'm taking you somewhere so remote, so protected, that even my enemies won't find you. Bella looked around at the destroyed boutique, at the shattered glass glittering on the floor like diamonds, at the bullet holes in the walls where her head had been just moments ago. She looked down at the massive ring on her finger, the one that was supposed to protect her, and realized she'd been wrong. The ring hadn't made her safe. It had made her a target. How long, she asked, how long do we have to hide? Nino's smile was cold and dangerous. As long as it takes for me to kill every single person who tried to hurt you today. He took her hand, his grip firm and possessive. Welcome to your cage, Bella. It's time to see just how gilded it really is. The drive took 4 hours, winding up into mountains Bella had only ever seen from a distance. They left the city behind, climbing higher and higher on roads that got narrower and more isolated with every mile. No other cars, no houses, just trees and rocks and the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the world had forgotten this place existed. Bella sat in the back of the armored SUV, still wearing the red dress under a coat someone had thrown over her shoulders. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the windows exploding, heard the bullets, felt Nino's weight crushing her into the floor. Nino sat beside her, on his phone the entire time, speaking in rapid, angry Spanish to people Bella couldn't see. His voice was low and dangerous, full of threats she didn't understand but could feel in her bones. Finally, as the sun was setting, they turned onto a private road with a massive gate. 2 armed guards stood on either side. They nodded at the SUV, and the gates swung open automatically. The fortress appeared through the trees like something from a movie. It wasn't a house. It was a compound. Stone walls surrounded several buildings, all built from dark wood and gray stone that blended into the mountain itself. Security cameras everywhere, more armed guards patrolling, lights that probably stayed on all night. It looked like a place built to keep the world out. Or to keep someone in. The SUV stopped in front of the main building. Marco opened the door and Nino climbed out first, then held his hand out for Bella. She took it, her legs shaky as she stepped onto the gravel driveway. The mountain air was cold and thin. Bella could see her breath. She pulled the coat tighter around herself, feeling small and lost in this huge, empty place. The front door opened and a line of people filed out. Staff, Bella realized. A housekeeper in a gray uniform, a cook in white, 2 more security guards, a young woman who might have been a maid. They stood in a neat row, their faces blank and professional, but their eyes were different. Their eyes were watching her with something that looked like suspicion, or maybe disgust. "This is Bella," Nino announced to them, his hand on the small of her back, possessive and firm. "She will be staying here indefinitely. You will treat her with the same respect you show me. Anyone who doesn't will be removed, permanently." The staff nodded, but Bella could see it in their faces. They didn't like her. They didn't trust her. To them, she was just some random waitress who had somehow wormed her way into their boss's life. A gold digger, a fake, an outsider who didn't belong. An older woman stepped forward, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her face lined and hard. "I'm Mrs. Reyes," she said, her voice cold and formal. "I run the household. Your room is on the 2nd floor, East Wing. Dinner is at 7. We don't accommodate special requests." "Thank you," Bella said quietly, but Mrs. Reyes had already turned away, dismissing her. Nino's hand tightened on Bella's back. "Show her to her room," he said to one of the young maids. Then he leaned close to Bella's ear, his voice low. "Stay inside. Don't wander. Don't trust anyone. I have business to handle." Then he was gone, walking away with Marco and Vincent, leaving Bella alone with these strangers who looked at her like she was trash they had to tolerate. The young maid, who couldn't have been more than 18, led Bella into the house without speaking. The interior was just as cold and beautiful as Nino's penthouse. Dark wood floors, high ceilings, expensive furniture that looked like no one ever sat on it, everything perfect and empty and lifeless. They climbed a wide staircase to the 2nd floor. The hallway was long and lined with closed doors. The maid stopped at one near the end and opened it. "This is yours," she said flatly, not looking at Bella. Then she left, her footsteps echoing down the hall, leaving Bella completely alone. The room was huge, a massive bed with dark blue sheets, a fireplace that wasn't lit, windows that showed nothing but trees and mountains and darkness, a door that led to a bathroom made of white marble. Everything was beautiful and expensive and felt like a hotel room, not a home. Bella walked to the window and looked out. She could see the security lights dotting the compound, guards walking their routes, the tall fence that surrounded everything. Beyond that, just wilderness, miles and miles of empty forest. She was trapped on a mountain with people who hated her, protected by men with guns from other men with guns. She thought about Mateo, safe in his hospital bed in the city, getting the care he needed, not knowing where his sister was or what she had done to save him. She thought about her tiny apartment with its water-stained ceiling and noisy neighbors. At least there, she had been free. At least there, she had been herself. Here she was nothing, a problem to be hidden, a weakness to be protected, a fake fiancé who nobody believed in. Bella sank onto the edge of the massive bed and finally let herself cry. Real tears, hot and bitter for everything she had lost. Her freedom, her life, her dignity, all of it traded away for her brother's heartbeat. A soft knock on the door made her jump. She quickly wiped her eyes. "Come in." The door opened and the young maid appeared again, carrying a tray. She set it on the desk by the window without a word. Soup, bread, water. Simple food served coldly. "Thank you," Bella said, trying to smile. The maid finally looked at her, and her expression was sharp with judgment. "You don't belong here," she said quietly. "Whatever game you're playing with Mr. Ramirez, it won't work. Girls like you never last. He'll get bored and you'll disappear just like all the others." Before Bella could respond, the maid was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. Bella stared at the closed door, at the tray of food she suddenly couldn't stomach, at the beautiful room that felt like a prison cell. She walked back to the window and pressed her hand against the cold glass. Outside, the mountains stretched forever into darkness. No lights, no people, no escape. She was alone in a fortress with people who hated her, belonging to a man who didn't love her, waiting for an enemy she couldn't see to try to kill her again. And the worst part was knowing she had chosen this. She had put that ring on her finger. She had made the deal. She had walked into this cage and locked it behind her. For Matteo, she reminded herself, for his life, for his future. But standing there in the darkness, looking out at the endless, empty wilderness, Bella wondered if saving her brother's life meant losing her own. Bella is trapped in a mansion with no friends. If you think isolation is a form of torture, comment, "Stay strong, Bella," to show her some support. 5 days passed in the mountain fortress. 5 days of eating meals alone in her room. 5 days of the staff barely speaking to her, their eyes cold whenever they had to bring her fresh towels or take away her untouched dinner plates. 5 days of staring out the window at the guards patrolling, at the fence keeping the world out, at the mountains that felt more like prison walls than protection. Bella barely saw Nino. He was always in meetings behind closed doors, his voice a low rumble she could hear through the walls but never understand. He was planning something, preparing for something. She could feel the tension in the house building like a storm about to break. On the 6th night, Bella couldn't sleep. She had tried for hours, tossing and turning in the too-big bed, her mind racing with worry about Matteo. She wasn't allowed to call him. Too risky, Nino had said. They might trace the call. So she lay there in the darkness, wondering if her brother was okay, if the transplant team had found a donor yet, if he missed her. Around 2 in the morning, she heard something. Car doors slamming. Urgent voices, footsteps running across gravel. Bella got out of bed and crept to her door, opening it just a crack. The hallway was dark except for the emergency lights near the stairs. She could hear movement below, people talking in harsh whispers. Then she heard Nino's voice, and something in it made her blood run cold. Pain. He was in pain. Without thinking, Bella pulled on the robe that had been left in her closet and slipped out of her room. She moved quietly down the hallway, down the stairs, following the voices to a room she'd never been allowed to enter. The door was slightly open. Through the gap, she could see Nino standing in what looked like an office, his black shirt soaked with blood down one side. Marco was trying to get him to sit down, but Nino pushed him away. "I'm fine," Nino growled, but his face was pale and his jaw was clenched tight with pain. "Boss, you need a doctor," Vincent insisted. "No doctors. No one else knows about this." Nino pressed his hand against his ribs, and it came away red and wet. "The Cortez problem is handled. Their leadership is gone. The rest will fall in line or follow their bosses to the grave." Bella pushed the door open wider without meaning to, and all 3 men's heads snapped toward her. "What are you doing out of your room?" Nino's voice was sharp, angry, but underneath it she could hear the tremor of pain. "You're hurt," Bella said, stating the obvious. "Go back to bed, Bella." It was an order, cold and final. But Bella didn't move. She saw the blood dripping onto the expensive carpet. She saw how Nino swayed slightly on his feet, trying to hide his weakness but failing. She saw the knife wound in his side, deep and jagged, still bleeding. Her waitress instincts kicked in. Years of dealing with kitchen burns, cuts from broken glasses, the time a drunk customer fell and split his head open, and she had to hold pressure on the wound until the ambulance came. Her body moved before her brain could tell her all the reasons this was a bad idea. "Sit down," she said firmly, walking into the room. "Now." Nino's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Excuse me." "You're bleeding all over the floor and you look like you're about to pass out. Sit down." Bella pointed at the leather chair behind the desk. For a long moment, Nino just stared at her. Marco and Vincent exchanged glances, clearly wondering if they should escort her out. But then something changed in Nino's face. Maybe it was the pain. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was something else. He moved to the chair and lowered himself into it, his hand still pressed against his bleeding side. "Marco, I need clean water, towels, and a first aid kit," Bella said, not taking her eyes off Nino. "Vincent, find me scissors and rubbing alcohol. Strong alcohol too, the drinking kind. Vodka if you have it." "You don't give orders here," Marco started to say, but Nino cut him off. "Do what she says." The 2 men left, and suddenly Bella was alone with Nino in the blood-spattered office. She knelt beside his chair and gently moved his hand away from the wound. His shirt was stuck to the cut with dried blood. She needed to see how bad it was. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "I've had worse." Nino's voice was rough but quieter now, some of the hardness gone. Bella carefully peeled the shirt away from the wound. Nino hissed through his teeth but didn't pull away. The knife wound was deep, about 4 inches long, along his ribs. It was still bleeding, but not as badly as she'd feared. No arterial spray. That was good. "You should have this stitched," she said. "This needs a real doctor." "You'll do." "I'm a waitress, not a nurse." "You're steady." Nino looked down at her hands, which weren't shaking at all despite the blood, despite the danger, despite everything. "And you didn't run away screaming when you saw the blood. That makes you better than half the people I know." Marco and Vincent returned with supplies. Bella cleaned her hands, then got to work. She washed the wound with water first, cleaning away the dried blood so she could see better. Nino's muscles tensed under her fingers, but he stayed still, watching her face with an intensity that made her nervous. "Tell me if I'm hurting you," she said. "You are. Keep going." Bella poured rubbing alcohol directly into the wound. Nino's hand shot out and gripped the arm of the chair so hard his knuckles went white, but he didn't make a sound. She cleaned the wound thoroughly, making sure there was no debris, no fabric from his shirt, nothing that could cause infection. The first aid kit had butterfly bandages, but no suture kit. She used what she had, pulling the edges of the wound together as tightly as she could, securing them with the bandages. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold. Then she wrapped clean gauze around his entire torso, her hands moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this kind of thing before, even if it had only been for kitchen accidents and drunk customer mishaps. When she finished, she sat back on her heels and looked at her work. The bleeding had stopped. The wound was clean and closed. He'd have a scar, but he'd live. "Done," she said quietly. Nino looked down at the bandages, then back at her. His dark eyes were different now, softer somehow, studying her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked. "You work in restaurants long enough, you see all kinds of injuries. Burns, cuts, falls. You learn to deal with it because calling an ambulance costs money nobody has." Bella stood up, her knees aching from kneeling on the hard floor. Her hands were covered in his blood. "You should still see a real doctor. Check for infection. Make sure nothing vital was damaged." "I'll be fine." "You're stubborn." "I'm alive." Nino reached out and caught her wrist, gently, his thumb pressing against her pulse point. "Because of you, twice now. First, you didn't spill the wine when Celeste hit you. Now you didn't run away when you saw me bleeding." "Where would I run to?" Bella asked, but her voice came out softer than she meant it to. "Most people would try anyway." Nino's grip on her wrist tightened slightly. "You're not most people, are you, Bella Cruz?" Before she could answer, his eyes rolled back and he slumped in the chair, unconscious from blood loss and exhaustion. "Nino," Bella caught him before he could fall, her small body straining to keep his weight in the chair. "Marco, Vincent, help." Marco and Vincent rushed in and helped Bella move Nino from the chair to the leather couch against the wall. He was heavy, all muscle and dead weight, his skin pale and clammy with sweat. Bella pressed her fingers to his neck, feeling for his pulse. It was there, fast but steady. He just passed out from exhaustion and blood loss, but he was breathing. "Should we move him to his room?" Vincent asked, hovering uncertainly. "No," Bella said, surprising herself with how firm her voice sounded. "He shouldn't be moved again until we're sure he's stable. Get me blankets and pillows, and more water." The men exchanged looks but did as she said. Within minutes, they had Nino covered with a blanket, a pillow under his head, looking almost peaceful in his unconsciousness. The hard lines of his face had softened. He looked younger like this, less dangerous, almost human. "One of you should stay," Bella said, "in case he gets worse." "We have to sweep the perimeter," Marco said. "Make sure no one followed us back. The Cortez attacked tonight. Someone knew where the boss would be." A chill ran down Bella's spine. Someone told them, someone who works for Nino. "Maybe that's what we need to find out." Marco looked at her with those cold, evaluating eyes. "You'll watch him." Bella nodded. Even though the idea of being alone with unconscious, wounded Nino terrified her. But what choice did she have? The men left, their footsteps echoing down the hallway until she couldn't hear them anymore. The house fell into silence, except for the crackling of the fire someone had started in the fireplace and Nino's steady breathing. Bella pulled a chair close to the couch and sat down, keeping watch. She didn't know what she was watching for. She just knew she couldn't leave him alone like this, vulnerable and hurt. An hour passed. Then, too, Bella's eyes grew heavy. The adrenaline from the past few hours was wearing off, leaving her exhausted and shaky. She was just starting to doze off in the chair when Nino's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Bella gasped, jerking awake. Nino's eyes were open, dark and unfocused, staring at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Bella," he rasped, his voice rough with pain. "I'm here. You passed out. You need to rest." But Nino's grip on her wrist tightened, almost painful now. He tried to sit up and winced, his hand going to his bandaged side. "How long was I out?" "About 2 hours. Nino, please lie back down. You're going to tear the wound open." Someone knew. His voice was low and dangerous, even weakened by pain. "Someone knew exactly where I would be tonight. The Cortez didn't just get lucky. They were waiting. They knew the location, the time, how many men I'd have with me." Bella's stomach twisted. A spy. A traitor. The word came out like a curse. Nino's eyes bore into hers, feverish and paranoid. "Someone in my organization told them. Someone I trust. Someone who has access to my schedule." Marco and Vincent wouldn't. "I don't know who it is, that's the problem." Nino tried to sit up again, and this time Bella helped him, propping pillows behind his back. He was breathing hard from the effort, his face pale. "It could be anyone, the guards, the staff, the drivers. Someone who's been with me for years, someone I never suspected." "What are you going to do?" Nino's hand was still wrapped around her wrist, his thumb pressing against her pulse like he was reassuring himself she was real. "I'm going to find them, and when I do, they'll wish they'd died with the Cortez tonight." His eyes focused on her more clearly now, studying her face. "But until then, I can't trust anyone." "You can trust Marco and Vincent, surely." "Can I?" Nino's laugh was bitter and dark. "I've known Marco for 15 years, Vincent for 12, and yet someone leaked my location tonight. Someone who knew I'd be vulnerable, distracted, focused on ending the Cortez threat." His grip tightened. "The only person who definitely didn't know my schedule was you." Bella's breath caught. "What?" "You." Nino pulled her closer, his eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through her. "You're the only one who had no idea where I was going tonight. No access to my calendar. No knowledge of my movements. You've been locked in your room for days, isolated from everyone, knowing nothing." "I don't understand what you're saying." "I'm saying you're the only person in this entire compound I know for certain isn't the traitor." Nino's voice was getting rougher, pain and exhaustion making him more raw, more honest than he'd ever been. "Everyone else is suspect. Everyone else could be the leak. But you're innocent. Not because you're good or loyal or trustworthy, but because you don't know anything worth betraying." Bella tried to pull her wrist free, but he held on, not roughly but firmly. "So what does that mean?" "It means you don't leave my sight." Nino's eyes were starting to glaze over again, fever or pain making him delirious. "You sleep where I sleep. You eat where I eat. You stay within arm's reach at all times until I find the rat." "That's insane." "That's survival." Nino pulled her even closer, so close she could feel his breath on her face, could see the fever sweat beading on his forehead. "Do you understand what happened tonight, Bella? The Cortez leadership is dead. I made sure of that personally. But before they died, they told me something interesting. They told me someone from my inner circle has been feeding them information for months. Someone close to me. Someone I would never suspect." Bella's blood ran cold. "Who?" "They died before they could give me a name." Nino's jaw clenched. "So now I'm surrounded by people I can't trust, protecting a woman they all want dead because killing her would hurt me." His hand moved from her wrist to her face, his palm cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. "You're the only variable that makes sense. The only one who's too new, too ignorant, too isolated to be part of any conspiracy." So I'm safe because I'm useless. Bella didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're safe because you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice was raw and fierce. And right now, you're the only thing in my world I don't have to question. His eyes started to close again, exhaustion pulling him under. You sleep here tonight, in this room, where I can see you. Nino, you need to rest. Promise me. His eyes fluttered open again, unfocused but desperate. Promise me you'll stay, that you won't leave this room, that when I wake up you'll still be here. Bella looked at this dangerous man, this killer, this criminal who was supposed to be invincible but right now looked broken and vulnerable and terrifyingly alone. She thought about saying no, about insisting on going back to her own room, about maintaining whatever boundaries still existed between them. But the truth was, she was just as scared as he was. Scared of the traitor they couldn't see. Scared of the enemies who wanted her dead. Scared of being alone in this fortress full of people who hated her. I promise, she whispered. I'll stay. Nino's grip on her loosened, his hand falling away from her face. His eyes closed and his breathing evened out, unconsciousness claiming him again. But even in sleep, his hand stayed near hers, like he was making sure she couldn't leave without him knowing. Bella pulled the blanket up over his chest, careful not to disturb the bandages. Then she settled back into her chair, drawing her knees up to her chest, watching over the man who owned her contract, but now, somehow, seemed to need her for something more than just appearances. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains. Inside, the fire crackled softly. And Bella Cruz, the waitress who'd sold herself to save her brother, realized that somewhere along the way, she'd become the only person the devil himself could trust. Nino trusts no one but the girl he bought. Do you think he's falling for her, or is he just using her? Let me know in the comments. Trust or user. See you in the next episode.